Boom! Welcome back to another episode of Evolving Through Experience, where we discussing growth in every aspect, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and beyond. It's always another level there. Today, guys, we have a special guest. Y'all know how I feel about my vegans, so it's always a special guest, regardless if they vegan, but especially when they vegan. If you know, you know. Today we have Queen Jade. How you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing. Thank you.
Nah, for sure. I'm glad to have you here. She is one of the top owners of one of the top vegan restaurants in Atlanta because they named it after her, but they ain't cutting no checks, so we can't really tell. So if you know, you know. So I want to dive right into it. Obviously, you know, evolving through experience. I met you at your restaurant. It was a dope vibe. We had a conversation about your story, and I think that's obviously going to be helpful for the world. Not even think, I know it's going to be helpful for the world. Other women out there, even males too, I'm sure could take from your story. So I want to dive right into it. Let's start with childhood. I just want to know, because everything starts with childhood. So I want to dive right into it, starting from there.
Absolutely. So my childhood, it was very traumatic. My mom had me at 15, 16. She struggled with addiction. My father was pretty young. They met that day and they conceived me. So I really believe that I'm here for a purpose.
For sure.
Yeah. My mom struggled with addiction, went to jail a few times. Father, not very present in my life. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go into that a little more, because I know you said a product of like you said they met the first day they met they had you. So from you knowing that, obviously I know you figured that out later. Let's go into that a little more. How did that make you feel? And then obviously we'll talk about overcoming, because it's a lot of people out there that may be products of one night stands, but that doesn't take their value away. And like you said, you're here for a purpose, and I want them to know they're here for a purpose, even if it may seem like it just happened and it wasn't meant to happen. It definitely happened for a divine purpose.
Absolutely. So I'm a birth worker, and so I study birth, and conceiving is hard. Conceiving is not something that just happens easily. So as a child, I feel like I've always known that that moment was very special. The odds of that was just crazy. So I never took it a negative way. I always took it a positive way, like I was here for a purpose. Because my father didn't want me, my family didn't want me. They asked my mom to get an abortion, but my mom was like, no, I'm keeping this child. And for her to be like, not as an enlightened being, but still making that choice and still being in tune with her body to know like, no, my child deserves to be here at 15, 16 years old is like, it's monumental. So that being said.
When did you find that out? As far as like how it happened, how you were conceived on a one night stand.
Oh, my parents were always very transparent. That's
Okay.
one thing. So they
That's
never
lovely.
hid that from me. They've always shown me what the world really was.
Do you feel like it's a perfect age to tell a child that? Especially because everybody is not enlightened at 15, 16, and obviously we'll go into how you got there, but when do you feel like it's a right time?
Absolutely. It depends on the child. It depends on the parenting style. I would be honest with my child at a young age. Once they can like understand and start asking those questions, then I would get them hip. But it's a way to do it. I would do it artfully, and I wouldn't just tell them like, you know, you're an accident.
Yeah.
But like, no, you're a very special child. You were put here for a reason. And then later on get into the details.
Got you. Okay, so let's talk about the relationship. Obviously, I know you say your father was in and out, or he was just gone from day one after.
He was in and out. He tried to be present. He tried, but he was young and he was building his own life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that being said, he wasn't as present as he really could have been.
So when you spoke to your mom about this, what necessarily made her, if she mentioned it, made her know like I'm keeping the child, and then even like figuring out how to raise you, especially as a child herself?
That's a great question. I think it was just something that was within her. I really feel like spirit was within her and really convinced her like, no, this child is here for a purpose.
Yeah.
And even to this day, my mom is like, you are the heart of this family. And I'm one of her most prized possessions, and she has 5 children. But I hold a very special place within her heart, and I'm one of her only daughters. So
Yeah. That's what's up. Okay. And then what about from your father perspective? I know you said he was young trying to figure out his own life. Did he ever come back and explain like why he wasn't present outside of that? Obviously without justifying it, but still just hearing his reasoning.
Absolutely. So my father he's from DC, and he was in the streets a bit, you know, getting into things he shouldn't have been getting
Yeah.
into. So he was very distracted. And, you know, if you can imagine, 17-year-old man,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he has a lot of distractions. You're in the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
His parents were well off, but that lifestyle didn't appeal to him. The streets called him. So that's where he was.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, I think going to jail, he went to jail, and I think he was in jail when I was born, or like around that time.
Okay.
And then once he had, I have a sister who's 6 months older than me.
Okay.
So he was on it.
From his side.
From his side.
Okay.
From his side. So once he had daughters, I feel like something just struck in him, and he was like, all right, I got to get my life together. And so he started getting his life together.
Okay, we definitely gonna go into that too, because that's evolving right there. But going back to your mother real quick, I know you said she struggled with had drug addiction, obviously.
Yeah.
So did she ever mention? Obviously, I know she was already transparent. Did she ever mention what caused that, and what was the experience that eventually got her off of it and made her like want to change that lifestyle up?
She never mentioned it. However, I think it was her relationship with her mother. She didn't have a good relationship with her mother, so without that nurturing energy, she was just in the streets, and she did what she did.
Yeah.
My grandmother has all boys and then her, and my grandmother never really nurtured her, gave her that love that she really needed, and she prioritized men majority of the time over other things, like her children.
Yeah.
So I think that led to her feeling how she feels. She was also abused, raped, molested herself at a very, very young age, like 13. So it's just a sad cycle that continued, and I'm here to break it.
Yeah, facts. I'm glad you said you're here to break it, because that's the biggest thing. So with that, when was her process of actually going to get help?
To be honest, she's still struggling. She's still struggling, but you know, every day's a process. She doesn't do hard drugs anymore. It took her it took her getting to rock bottom, like her in the hospital. I was like 11th grade, and I got a phone call, and her body just shut down. She was in Colorado. I had to go visit her in Colorado, and she's literally on her deathbed. All the family is literally like coming from all across the country to go visit her. We get there, and she has holes all in her body. She's like a literal different color. Like, she's purple. Like, legs are black. And doctor was like, yeah, she might not make it. And at that point, she was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, so high blood pressure in the lungs and the heart. And they were like, she needs a new lung and a new heart. And so we didn't think she was going to make it, but the love and the energy of like us all coming together, I really feel like inspired her growth from that point. Beautiful. And so she started switching up her lifestyle, started putting herself in different places, environments, where she then got rid of the hard drugs, and now she just struggles with a little bit of alcohol. But it's a journey for her.
Yeah. That's a beautiful journey still. That's a beautiful journey still, because a lot of people would have, like you said, the way you described it, a lot of people would have made it through that.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Her heart failed like 7 times. Like she went into, I think, cardiac arrest, or she had seizures, or her body just shut down on her. But with that being said, I feel like I've inspired her through my vegan lifestyle, because once she was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension and she started seeing the way I live, it inspired her to start transitioning to being more plant-based. So she's not 100% vegan, but she's very much like plant-based, very conscious. She does a lot of vegan dishes, and she's actually been able to like reverse her pulmonary hypertension. So she goes back to the doctor, and even with her still drinking, like she goes back to the doctor, and they're like, your holes have healed.
Yeah. The key. Try to tell him the key. Nah, for sure. No, that's what's up. I even want to hear more of her story later on too, because that's amazing. And I'm sure somebody out there doing that or have dealt with that. So to hear how she's been able to evolve, because that's all it is evolving, and that's why I named it Evolve. It's a continuous process. So nobody said she got to have it all together today, but she's getting there, and I just want to shout her out for that, because that's amazing.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Shout
so
out, Mom.
Nah, for sure. We're gonna make sure we send that to her. So from there, I want to go more into your story though too, because before we do that, what could you give a child that's in that situation now and having to witness that? Because obviously you're seeing this young, like you said, trauma, young. What could you give to them in that moment to let them know, like, keep your head together, because that could be an easy way to just go crash out.
Absolutely.
That's an easy way to crash out.
Absolutely. If you have a vision and you have a goal and you want to get out of it, you know that you can get out of it. And see that. See, there was so many times where I was like living in my trailer or homeless, and I was like, this is not the end result. I'm destined to be greater. And I really had to keep that in my mind. And even though it was hard in that moment, I accepted that this is not the end. This is only a part of the journey.
Facts. Beautiful.
Yeah.
For sure. So at what age, unfortunately, that you was sexually assaulted? I know you said multiple times, and abuse from all aspects. So what age was this, and how long did it last?
Absolutely. So I had a couple incidences. Mostly when I was in high school, I was molested and raped. And at the time, my mom was struggling with addiction. And I thought that she set me up on this. I really thought that she set me up because she wasn't in her best mind. I had moved to Colorado after I graduated. So maybe I was like 17, 18 years old. And I was about to start college. And I saved up all this money. And she had two of my brothers. I have three brothers from her. She had two of them with her. And so I was like, yeah, we can't be out on the street. So I'm giving them all my money, making sure we're all good. But obviously, I'm still 17, 18 years old. So my money ran out. And at that point, she started calling in resources. So we go and we spend the night at this guy's house. And it was just like a set expectation that, I mean, I was with him and that I was in his room. And he took advantage of me that night. And in the morning, he literally told me, like, you better not tell anybody that I raped you. And I was like, if I didn't know, that was the confirmation. And I was just like, I felt, so I've always done everything for my little brothers because I've had a traumatic life. And I've had to help raise my little brothers. And I didn't want them to go through the same thing. So with them being in the other room, I felt so helpless in that moment. Like, I cannot take away their innocence. I can't take away their childhood. So as this was happening to me, I'm just like thinking of my little brothers, and I'm like, okay, I got to take it. I just got to take it. I can't scream. I can't do anything about this. I have to just let this happen.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you think hearing that is just like you doing this to protect somebody else, but obviously you're not protecting yourself? Did you at ever any point in the future like regret like saying, why didn't I speak up, versus trying to so much of look out for other people that you wound up putting your own self in, not necessarily harm's way like you did it intentionally, but just in the sense of you put yourself on the back burner when at that moment when you should have been on the front burner? Have you ever got to a point in life where you like kind of blamed yourself?
No. I like to live my life with no regrets. And
as you should.
I can say I only have, very minor regrets, but that is not one of them. I don't feel like it was appropriate for me to stand up in that time and really expose them to that trauma.
And again, I'm sorry to hear that. When did you come out and say something? And then I want to also navigate through the conversation of you feeling like your mom did it. Because like I could only imagine, and it maybe somebody else is out there thinking like, yo, like how could this, that adds more trauma to it, because like I'm supposed to be here with my family, my mom, and I come out here and then this happens, and it's like, you don't know what to think. Your mind could be going 1,000 ways. And respectfully so, it makes sense that your mind is going 1,000 ways because this is a new experience that you did not want. So navigate me through that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So I felt like her judgment was off. And because in the morning she joked about it. Like my little brother made a comment and she was just like, ha ha ha. Her neck
What was the comment?
He was like, oh, what happened to your neck? Or like I had like marks on my body. And she was like, ha ha ha, like the vacuum cleaner sucked her up or something. And he was young and he already was asking like questions like, what happened? After that, I honestly never told her. I haven't told her yet. I haven't told her because our relationship was just getting to a point of, actually our relationship was never really good until like after that situation, until she started coming clean. So it's been pretty recent, like that we've actually started building. And through me just naturally learning who she is and what she's been through, I was able to give her grace. And now I don't feel like she intentionally set me up, but in that moment I was like, how could you put your child in a scenario where they're taken advantage of, or even like remotely? you know, even at 17, 18 years old, like still like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
But with me knowing her backstory and how she is, I just gave her grace.
And grace came later on?
Well, let me do say, with my background being in spirituality, like learning that so young, being a yoga instructor and just really doing that childhood work at a young age, I've always kind of had that since then. At that moment of 15, when everybody else was, you know, into boys or music or whatever, I was living under a rock and I was studying, doing my shadow work, doing my healing.
Eternal,
yeah. So when it came to that point, I had already had that grace to give, and I had already worked through that in some way, shape, or form. Because I always think of it like, I never blamed my parents for what they put me through because they're going through their own independent journey themselves. And it's like, who am I? Like, I'm just a part of it. So it's not about me, even if it's about me. You know, it's always about what they're going through. So I always just, you know, was able to take a step back and know that it wasn't personal.
No, for sure. And I hope a lot of people can get to that mentality, that spirituality as well, because that's more than just mental right there, to obviously have that at such a young age and at any age to really find peace in pretty much all things, regardless, like you said, not living with regrets. It takes a different level to get there. And I hope everybody is willing and wants to get to that level. And I truly think people want to get there. They just don't know how yet. And I think these type of conversations are the resources to show them that it's possible, and also the steps on how to actually get there as well. Not just to show them it's possible, but to show them how.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I want to just go in a little more too regarding that. So walk me through as far as you actually obviously going to the yoga studio, not knowing about it, and actually walking into this spiritual enlightenment.
Absolutely. So I've always been pretty adventurous and outgoing. So I was taking a walk one day and I was in a small town and I stumbled upon a hot yoga studio. It's called Hot Yoga on Main. And I walked in.
Shout out to them.
Right. Shout out to them for my spiritual journey. Thank you. I walked in and they were like, first yoga class free. I had never even heard the term yoga before, but I was like, oh yeah, this is me.
Open-minded. Yeah.
Yep. So I go back home, tell my grandmother, and my grandmother's like my best friends, both of my grandmothers. And I'm like, we got to go to this yoga class. Our first class is free. So she came with me and we did this yoga class. And from the moment I stepped on the mat, I lied to you not, I felt like home. I felt like, I don't know what this is, but I know that some way, somehow, this is me. And I looked at the yoga instructor, and the yoga instructor, she was just so powerful and she was so sensual, but she did it in an artful way. And I was like, one day I'm gonna be that. And so that inspired my journey to become certified in yoga for kids and adults.
Okay, bet. No, I love that. So how often do you host classes? You host classes or?
I do private and corporate events.
Private and corporate events? Okay, and how long has that been? I know you said so.
So it's been about like 10 years.
10, okay.
10.
Yeah.
Well, it's been like 11.
11. Okay.
11.
Bet. Hey, well, congratulations. That's super dope. I'm going to have to get an event too. I had a yoga event too with somebody else I had on here. She's also a yoga instructor. So we had an event, and I obviously see the benefits of it. I need to do it on a weekly basis. But yeah, we're going to get there.
Absolutely. It's a journey.
So let's talk about as far as this. So as far as you, before I transition to the next topic, I want to ask you, so as far as this experience of you having, obviously, these experiences young, did that ever affect you in any way of decision making of actually wanting your own children?
Yeah.
Okay.
So growing up, I never wanted kids. I used to tell people like, nah, I don't want no kids. I don't want to be married. I just want to give my brothers a good lifestyle.
This is before you healed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I knew that it was a problem. So so I challenged myself because I didn't like kids, actually. I really didn't like kids. I was like, oh no, kids, absolutely not. And so that challenged me to get my certification to teach kids yoga. Okay. So once I started dealing with kids, I was like, okay.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad. I like these kids, but I still didn't like kids.
Got you.
And then as life evolved and I really understood the value of family and a healthy family structure, I was like, okay, I can have kids if that's really what I want to do. Yeah. But my own trauma, I always knew that there was a problem that I had to solve for, and I didn't want to perpetuate the same cycle for my offspring. So I said, if I'm ever going to have a child, then I need to heal me. So that led me to going down this path of learning parenting and maternal health and reproductive health and just really getting conscious within my body. And that's when I found my passion for birth work.
Okay.
And just being a vessel in that realm.
Beautiful. And what's the biggest lessons or biggest, they don't have to be lessons, just biggest takeaways that you've learned from actually like studying birth work that you could give another woman, or just a male too, that's, like I said, building a family or whatever it may be? What is something you could give them to let them know it's possible, or this is the way to do it, best way, or whatever?
Absolutely. I would say whatever you want, whatever outcome you want, it starts in the mind. I think that in this Western society, we often associate birth with pain and trauma, and we see it in media and pop culture, and it's like, it's trauma filled. So when we think about birth, we then go there in our mind. So then we create trauma filled experiences with birth. And so if you want to rewrite that narrative, we have to really condition our bodies and rewire our minds to think of birth as being something positive and something that can be euphoric. Like there's such thing as orgasmic births where women can really tap into their essence and have full body orgasms while giving birth. And it's like, this information isn't common.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know if you wouldn't know.
Study, yeah.
Exactly. So I would say that whatever outcome you want, it's achievable. And honestly, it's like you have to be very in touch with your intuition, because even the doctors will try to set you up. And you would think like they're the professionals.
And everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they're my professionals. I should trust them. But no, baby, you should trust your heart, trust yourself, and get that knowledge and get your advocators, get doulas, get midwives, really seek those educators to give you all the knowledge before you dive into the Western realm.
Yeah, agree. And I'm glad you said that, because that just made me come up with some new another question. So with that being said, what is a book, or like you said, I know you said studying, but what is a book, or where would somebody start? Because if you're just having a child for the first time, it's no guide to parenthood or having a child. And like you said, most of the time people have children, and sometimes it's expected and sometimes it's not. So everything is moving so fast. Life is moving fast still. So what is something you could give somebody, or book wise, to let them know, like, this is where you should start, to let you know, like, don't just trust the doctors, because here you just going in, you just like, I don't know what to do. You just looking for guidance so you could be more receptive to what somebody else say, because you have no blueprint, no foundation. So what is a foundation that they can build, whether that's from a book, whether that's from a TV show, I don't know, but what can you give them?
Absolutely. Any of Queen Afua's work.
Okay.
Any of Queen Afua's work. Reproductive Injustice is a good book to start with. I would start there.
I got to get her on. That's going to happen. We putting it out there. I'm going to get her
Queen
on.
Afua?
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Like I said, we cover all aspects, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and beyond, because it's always another level there. So for sure. So let's go into it. I know the marriage, though. So how did this come about? And then we're going to talk about how cycles repeated, because obviously I know what happened with your marriage, but let's talk about that too.
Absolutely. Okay, so I feel like throughout my spiritual journey, I've got a lot of things right. However, I always struggled with relationships. And I've been fortunate enough to have really good, meaningful relationships as it relates to men. But there was one aspect of my life where I attracted a man who I thought that was the one, and he was not the one. So he did a little bait and switch on me, and he presented himself to be this person. And then when we got married, he then was a whole nother person, and he wasn't able to deal with his trauma. And this was his first relationship, being like 26, 27. And this was the first time. As you know, like sometimes relationships, or not sometimes, relationships are a reflection of you, and they very much hold up a mirror in front of your face. And so he's just being confronted with all of his past trauma for the very first time, and he doesn't have the background that I do. So I gave him lots of grace. But I said all that to say that he let his addictions run him, and which led to the ending of our marriage. And I was telling you before, like, I don't really believe in marriage, so I tried. I don't believe in divorce.
Yeah.
So I tried everything I could. But, sometimes things didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. And with that, what were the addictions that you are comfortable sharing that he had? Because I'm sure it's an addiction for other people too,
Absolutely.
male and women. So let's talk
Absolutely.
about it.
So he had he had a drug addiction, multiple drugs, and a sex addiction that he has been struggling with. And I tried to help him work through that, but it was his time to do his journey himself independently.
Got you. And with that being said, do you feel like, before we even get to the divorce, do you feel like you overexerted yourself to the point where did it take a toll on you because you overexerted yourself for the sake of trying to help somebody else so much? Obviously, you've been in a position where you needed to heal. So did you kind of feel like, I guess, like survivor's guilt to some degree, if that makes sense?
I do feel like I compromised aspects of myself for the marriage. I do. But not to the point where I couldn't return. And once it was that line, I didn't know when the line was going to happen, but I journaled a lot during the marriage. And I took notes and data points. And so 1 year, I was like, this is not it. And then a year passed by, and I was still in that position. And I was like journaling about the same thing. And I knew, all right, this is your cue. Like, if things don't change by this date, then you have to go for your own self. And I did.
With that being said, obviously you decided it was time to go. You knew it was time to go. Obviously, divine timing, divine timing, as usual. When did he, if any, did he like give you, not necessarily you grace, but was just pretty much seeing how hard you was going for him to the point where he eventually went and got help? If he did, not yet.
He still hasn't gotten help, and he wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to live his lifestyle with addiction, but also have a wife at home who was really a wife. And that just wasn't able to happen.
Got you. So what could you give to another woman that's maybe in that situation? Because obviously you can relate. So what could you give to them in that situation right now to let them know, like, all right, this is when it's time to go? And not just saying it's a perfect date or a perfect time. Like, when do they should decide that it's time to go, if that makes sense?
So my grandmother taught me this strategy. So what I do is create a chart. And when you write the chart, you do pros and you do cons. And you put all the person's pros on one side and all the person's cons on the other side. And you look at it for what it is. And it will tell you what you need to do. Because them cons is going, if it's really conning, it'll show. It'll show. Yeah. And that'll tell you exactly what you need to do, because I feel like women are so emotional and we can get like, oh, but he's going to change or this and that.
But thinking you could change him?
Yeah. But you can't. But you can't. They have to be willing to change themselves. And as much as I, provided those resources for him and created that sanctuary at home and cooked plant-based foods and taught yoga, did sound baths and all this, like, he had to be ready for it, and he just wasn't. And as I'm doing these charts, I'm like, oh yeah, he's just not ready. So it's time. It has to be time, because if I did not make that decision, then it would then be holding back
yourself.
Exactly. And what I need to accomplish here.
Agreed. And I hope a lot of people could get to that mindset, and not just in a sense of a marriage, but any relationships, and not just relationships with people, but with other things as well, that if it's serving you no benefit, it's time to transition it out. And I seen a quote that you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was like, death is not always a bad thing. It was something like that you posted on your IG. It was like, because as I'm doing like my research to do questions, I know you said that, and I think that's so vital, because that is true. Sometimes things, and this is the one quote I always say, is life or death. But death, like you said, is not always a bad thing. Some things new need to die off in order for new things to grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think of myself as like this cup metaphorically, and you gotta let a few things fall out. You gotta let things so you can have room for that new. And like you said, yes, death is not a bad thing. It's not. It's just an opportunity for growth.
Agree. And hopefully everybody can get there. And that's why I call it evolving. I'm a manifest that everybody's going to get there, honestly, because that's the only option. I want to ask you, this is one of the top questions before I go to the next topic.
Okay.
What does evolving through experience mean to you in your own words? There's no wrong answer, because it's evolving. every guest say it differently, but I just love how everyone expresses it differently.
I feel like evolving through experiences, taking it day by day, moment by moment, and chipping away the old slowly but surely. And each day putting forth one step or two steps, whatever you can give on that day to invest in your future and to evolve.
Yeah. Hey, only option. Beautiful. I know you touched on this a little bit, but what I don't know if it was when we spoke, but what inspired you to go vegan? Like, walk me through that.
Oh,
yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yes. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, I was on a spiritual journey at a young age, and I was exposed to a lot of things. And once I started that journey, I knew that I wanted to reach my highest pinnacle. And when I started learning about the food industry, I knew, how was I going to achieve the highest me if I'm ingesting trauma-based foods? So it was a no-brainer for me. And I was like, okay, well, it's looking like vegetables and grains it is.
Yeah. So what was that process? Because I know when I went vegan, I know you're a vet out here. What was that process? Because obviously what we have now is not always what they had, and it's more streamlined now. But some of the vegan quote unquote food is not even healthy. And I don't even like saying vegan for the lack of a better word. But let's talk about that transition for you.
So I did it rough. I went cold turkey.
Yeah,
once I had
same.
yes.
Yeah.
Once I had the knowledge, I was like, oh yeah, cold turkey. I ended up getting sick for like 3 weeks. I never got sick, and I didn't know how to be vegan. I'm just keeping it real. I really didn't. So it was
Do you
a
have
lot
a guide?
I do have a guide now.
Oh, but then you didn't have.
I didn't have
okay.
any guide. Didn't have any like inspiration for real. My aunt was vegan, and she sent me this video. It was called Dairy is effing scary.
Okay, gotcha.
Dairy is effing scary on YouTube. Look it up. And it was a 5-minute clip on just the dairy industry. And once I saw that video, I was like, yeah, nah, it's a wrap. And I didn't know how to be vegan. I was eating bread, carbs, whatever, got sick, had to do a lot of trial and error, but we made it through.
Facts. Hey, that's the biggest thing. So what could you give to a new vegan that's just starting? Like, where do they start? Whether that's cookbooks, but then cookbooks could be overwhelming for somebody that's brand new to veganism. So what could you give them?
Okay.
I'm not considering myself new no more. So can't start with me.
I would say find your substitutes. Find your healthy substitutes. What can you replace certain things with, like butter? Find a vegan butter, milks. People start with milk. And then slowly but surely just find your transitions and your substitutes and just transition them out. And then eventually you'll look up and be like, oh, most of my fridge is vegan. You know?
Agree. And I think people overthink being vegan. Like, really, you're just taking out certain things. You're just taking out meat, dairy, and cheese. Well, dairy and cheese go hand in hand. So it's like you're just taking out minor things. Everything else you eating is still like it's really you eat. If you eat regular food, quote unquote, you still eating vegan. You just taking some things out. So I think people overthink it.
Yeah, they think it's limiting, but they're not thinking of the plethora of things that we actually have at our disposal.
Correct.
Like, I feel like being vegan has opened me up to the world so much because we get introduced to so many new cuisines, Asian, Indian, Thai, whatever, Jamaican, and we're forced to go experience different cultures and cuisines and fusions.
I be going crazy when I go to new vegan restaurants. So I can't control myself. I just start buying extra stuff. I'm probably the last week, like over the last few days, within the last week, I probably tried a new vegan restaurant at least daily. Like, and then the other day, I actually went to 2 new vegan restaurants that I wanted to try. And then when I landed back, when I was in New York a few days ago, so I was hitting like Uber Eats and everything. And I was just like, no, this is getting ridiculous. But it just be like that because I'm not new, but I'm new still. So I just be trying everything. So let's talk about traveling though. So what opened you? Obviously, you was open-minded, obviously from a very, very young age. So what got you into traveling?
I think as a child, I traveled so much. I was an Army brat, so I never stayed in one place for longer than a year.
So who was in the military?
My stepfather.
Oh, your stepfather. Okay, okay. So after the fact. Okay. So let's talk about that relationship because I didn't even know that definitely plays a role. So how was that impactful for you? Impactful. I was gonna say not, and then also like the negative sides, but I don't believe it's no negative side. It's just all lessons. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I always feel like the world raised me, and I was fortunate to have been introduced to my step-parents at a young age. So my stepfather came into my life about 4 years old. My stepmother, same too. So, I mean, it was just bonus parents. He was in the military. We traveled a bit with him.
So just to make sure I got this right, was it more of like an adoption? Because obviously your mom, I know you said your mom was obviously dealing with her addiction. So was it more like you was adopted?
No,
Okay,
it
no,
wasn't.
okay, because
I was living with her at the time.
Okay, just living. Okay, and then obviously your stepfather was there as well. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that correctly. So that process. So what was the great size of that you realized at that young age as well, and then even now looking back, because hindsight is 2020. So looking back now, what could you also say was a great aspect to all of that?
A great aspect to what exactly?
As far as having a step parent, and obviously, because I know with your situation being a product of a one night stand, now it's like, all right, now I have a stepfather, and I have a real father, and I have my mom, and things of that nature. So from there,
I feel like it was a blessing because I knew that my parents couldn't give me that like traditional maternal and paternal love. So I feel like God put my step parents in my life to kind of like fill those gaps, and they all did their part, and they all played a role in helping raise me.
Nah, beautiful. And if this was the case, has your mother or even your father ever told you how much you've helped them versus vice versa as well? Because obviously, you being a young age, this level of wisdom is gonna pour out without you even forcing it. So have they ever came back and mentioned that to you in any aspect?
Absolutely. They tell me that frequently. They do. They tell me that. But like
I can see how.
Yeah. Honestly, it's just I live my life, and one of my favorite quotes is "Be the change you wish to see in the world." So I just be the change. I be what I want to, what I want to invoke into the world, and what I want to spread. And so with that, they've seen me living my life. They've seen me overcome things and achieve things, and they're like, "Kudos to you."
Yeah.
Kudos
Inspiring.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good. And I think and that's part of evolving right there. Not just necessarily having to live with our own experiences, but witnessing other people's experiences is an experience itself that allows us to grow and evolve from all aspects as well. For sure. What's your favorite country that you've been to?
Whew, favorite country. Surprisingly, I love the UK.
Okay, surprise. Why you say surprisingly? I've never been in the UK.
Because when I started traveling, I was like, I don't want to go to Europe. What?
Yeah.
And then I got there and I was like, oh, I like Europe.
Yeah.
I really love
They got
Europe.
a lot of vegan options?
Yeah, London. When I was in London, they have some vegan options. I was like, okay.
A lot or just some?
No, a lot.
Okay.
A lot. I had some really good experiences in London. It's definitely one place to travel to get your vegan eats.
Bet.
For sure.
I'm greedy, so I'm gonna have to go over there. I need that for sure. Okay. What's some books outside of the one you just mentioned by Queen Afua that's truly also helped you from before that you may have read when you was younger, and then a recent book that you've read when you got older that's both had huge impacts on you?
How to Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay.
Okay, I gotta write that down.
Yes. I've taken that book with me throughout my life. And the Four Agreements.
The Four
Agreements is like a staple. And I feel like we brush upon that and that's thrown out so much. But so many problems can be alleviated if you just go back to the Four Agreements. Simple. I feel like those books have really helped me. In my recent years, I've been more in the books of like, more like maternal, reproductive health books or articles, peer review articles and stuff like that. So that's more of my reading nowadays.
Okay.
But those two books, staple for sure.
Got you. Appreciate that. I'm gonna have to definitely check out the first one that you mentioned. I want to ask you, as far as outside of books, with your siblings, your brothers, have they ever mentioned how much you've been an impact for them, and then also vice versa? Because obviously, when you having that experience young, like you said, and you shielded them from it, and they didn't know. Have you ever came out and like told them how much they've inspired you, and then also vice versa?
My brothers are still pretty young. So my oldest has just turned 18, 16, and then 14. Those are their ages. So they're not at that space now to fully articulate it, but I see it in their actions. Like my oldest brother, for example, he has an incredible talent for agriculture. He can just plant and it just grows. His garden, he can grow anything. And I'm like, where did you learn this from?
That's what's up.
Yeah. And so I've always tried
Are
to.
they based in here?
No, they
Oh.
live in Baltimore.
Dang. Whew. I need that.
Right.
I need that. That's a class itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get him to come build me a little patio garden.
Yeah. I
for
want to build a
sure.
garden. Yeah.
So throughout my life, I've tried to give them different experiences, like being vegan and just traveling and stuff like that. So I don't feel like they've truly articulated it yet. However, when I talk to them, they don't have the same experiences I've had when I was a child. My oldest brother was like, he told me, he's like, I have a very happy childhood. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we're doing something right.
Yeah, that bring you peace.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing that they can. I think it's the more of you're planting the seeds, and obviously one day they'll be able to look at this seed that's fully grown and be able to really truly be grateful and cherish it. Now that they'll be able to see things from a bigger aspect once they grow. But that's good that you planting the seeds as well. And like I said, they never mentioned it, but they shown it through actions. But have you told them how much they've been an impact for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, how was that process?
Absolutely. I mean, I tell them all the time. I tell them all the time, like, y'all are my whys. Y'all have been my biggest whys throughout life. And everything I'm doing, I'm really doing it for you, even if it doesn't look like it, even if I'm miles away.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to do this for me so that I can show you that you can do it too.
Correct.
And if I'm eating, y'all eating.
Facts. Only way. That's how it's supposed to be with family. What's your favorite vegan dish? To eat or to cook? Because you say you a chef. So.
Oh, I would say lasagna.
Lasagna?
I make a mean vegan lasagna.
What do you make it with?
Like meat
Yeah,
substitute?
the meat substitute, yeah. Do you do walnuts or what?
We can do walnuts, lentils, Beyond. It depends on
I don't do Beyond.
Right.
I hate Beyond. That make me sick, but I got you.
Depending on the audience.
Okay,
but
got you.
And then I make the cheese from cashews.
When you making this again? I'm asking for a friend because I need that. I haven't had vegan lasagna yet. That's the only thing. I ain't gonna say that's the only thing I haven't tried. But like I said, I'm always trying to try some new vegan food.
I got you.
All right, bet. Say less. You opening up another restaurant soon?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
All right, bet. Yeah. Say less. Let me know you open that restaurant. We gonna put that one out. The other one, they ain't giving you credit yet. Nah, for sure. Any last words you just want to leave the audience? Let the people know. Any last words?
Last words. I'm gonna leave you with my quote that I live by, which is be the change you wish to see in the world. And anything that you want is already inside of you. So reach within and accomplish your wildest dreams.
Facts. Only way. Well, I appreciate having you on again, honestly. It was truly a pleasure. Looking forward to letting the world see this and even trying some of that vegan food, checking out your new restaurant when it's on the way. So now I appreciate you. Without further ado.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Nah, for sure. So if y'all enjoyed another episode of Evolving Through Experience, make sure y'all check it out. Make sure y'all follow us. Make sure you share it with a friend. If you're not evolving, you're dissolving. So let's start today. Shop the brand. Share, like I said, share it with a friend. And let's just continue to evolve daily. Catch us on the next episode. Peace.
I'm a bad